everyone and welcome to another episode of Cooking at King's, and today we're going to do another basic that we can use for lots of different things. So I'm going to make the thing first, the basic thing, and then I'm going to show you a couple of ways in which we can do it and use it, and we'll go from very simple to a bit more complex, so different skills that we can be using. And basically what we're going to be making is we're going to be making a short crust pastry. So this pastry is used in things like tarts or cakes, not cakes but things like that. But we're going to be using it for mince pies and cheese straws, and we might also have a go at custard tarts as well. So that's the kind of thing that we can use this for. The recipe for the pastry is quite simple, but it involves a few different techniques that we're going to use today. And then you'll see from the very, very simple to the little bit harder. So I think what we'll first do is we'll make the pastry. So I'll put up the ingredients for that. And then as I go into the different activities, the different things, I'll show you the different ways of the different recipes and the different things that you'll need for those as we go through. So we're going to start with the pastry. So pastry is very, very easy, this kind of pastry. Again, pastry can go from being quite simple, short crust pastry, to a little bit harder like a choux pastry or a flaky pastry, but this one's quite simple. And all we need for this one is we're going to be using some plain flour and then some butter. I'm using spread, but I prefer butter, but this is fine. I just don't have any other things at the moment. And then we need a bit of salt, a little bit of salt for taste. So salt is a flavour enhancer. It doesn't mean it's always going to taste salty. Salt brings out the flavour of whatever we're creating. And water is the other thing that we need. We need a little bit of water. So I've got a cup of water here. This is not an ingredient. This is my cup of coffee. So we don't need that. That's just there for me. So we're going to start really simply. We're going to take our flour. So I've measured out the flour, and you've got the amount that you'll need, but I've measured it out just for my ease. So I'm starting out with the flour, and then I'm just going to put a little bit of salt into it. Like I said, this is just for taste. So we just add the salt so it enhances all the flavours that we're going to put with it as well. So that's just normal table salt. And then what we have is butter. Now, like I said, I would prefer to use butter. I just don't have any on it at the moment. So sometimes we have to make do in a recipe, and that is fine. So I've got my butter, and it's in, you can't really see it in here, but it's in little cubes as best we can. Again, it doesn't need to be perfect. It's just whatever you can do. And what we're going to do today is we're going to be doing some crumbing. It's called crumbing. And the reason it's called crumbing is quite simply because what we're trying to achieve is it's going to look eventually like breadcrumbs. That's what we're going to try and make. So it's going to look something a bit like breadcrumbs. So I get my butter and I just put it into my flour. And the movement I'm going to be doing is kind of like, it's called rubbing. That's what we're going to do. So we rub the flour with the salt in and the butter together with just this movement. And as we do that, like I said, what we should eventually get is lots of things that look like breadcrumbs. And so that's nice. We're sort of adding a bit of air into the mixture. It is a messy one. We do need to use our hands. You could, if you had a mixer, a good mixer, you could put it into a mixer and pulse it. But I think getting your hands messy is sometimes the best thing about baking, and also I think you get the best effects from it. So move it around, try and make sure that you're getting all the flour covered in a bit of the flour, so that we have those breadcrumbs. We don't want any big clumps, and we don't want sort of any dry bits of flour. That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to move that grease around. So like I said, pastry is a really, really simple thing to make. Doesn't take too much effort, doesn't take too much ingredients, but we can use it for lots of things, and we can add it to lots of things so that we can make lots of different things as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm pretty much there. So you see I'm sort of moving it around with my fingers. That movement, keep going on. You can see now that I'm getting to the point where I've pretty much got breadcrumbs. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over to the camera and just show you so you can see the kind of consistency it should look like, if we can get it. There we go, perfect. So it looks very much like breadcrumbs. So that's what we're doing. So once we've got that, what we're then going to do is we're going to add some water to it, and then we're going to mix it around with a knife, which I need to get out of the drawer. And again, the reason we use a knife for this is because we don't want it sort of sticking. We're not mixing it, as it were. We're combining it, I suppose, is the best way of putting it. So we're just going to put some, this is cold water, by the way. So just a couple of cold water first of all. Now again, it's up to you to sort of, I would always suggest in a recipe doing it bit by bit. You don't want to do too much in one go because you can't take things out of a recipe. We can add more in if we think we need more, but you can't obviously take it out. So once you've put some water in, what we're looking for is the ability to form a dough. So we want it to be able to sort of stick all together. So we don't want to put loads of water in, we still want it a bit crumbly because we want that crumbly texture. That is the thing about short pastry, that's what we're calling it, short crust pastry, is it's got that crumbliness to it. We're looking for the ability to have that crumbliness. So this is my dough now, this is my pastry. So there we go, we've made pastry, it's as simple as that. And now what we're going to do is we're going to look at creating different recipes using this pastry. So we don't want to make it an excess, so I haven't given you loads to make. But hopefully with this we can make some different recipes, going from quite easy to a bit more difficult. So what we need to do now is we need to get some more ingredients, and I think we'll go with the most simplest one first of all. We'll go with a cheese straw. So these are things that I make a lot of at Christmas. So I love a cheese straw at Christmas. They're really simple, anyone can make them, and they're really, really tasty. And it looks quite complex. Like when you present it to people, they're quite impressed that you've made it, but like I say, it's really, really simple. So what I'm doing is just, I had a few sort of crumbs at the bottom of that bowl, so I'm just getting those together. Now what we need to do actually before we make anything with our pastry is the short crust pastry works best when it is cold. So the next thing you need to do is just put some wrap around this, like cling film, and put it in your fridge for around 10 or 15 minutes, and that is how it's going to work best. So what we need to do now is just have a little pause, go away, put it in the fridge for about 10 or 15 minutes, and then you can come back and watch the rest of the video. Okay, so now we've got our pastry all rolled out and put in our pastry cases. What we're going to do is we're going to make the custard filling. So the first thing that you want to do is put your oven on, because we're going to cook these eventually in the oven. We are going to use the hob as well, but we're going to cook these eventually in the oven. So we're going to put that on for about 190, which is gas mark 4, 5, first of all. So do that first of all, so that the oven starting to get hot. And then once we put the oven on, what we're going to do is we're going to start making our custard filling. Now I've got one really good tip for this. I have no caster sugar at the moment because we've run out, but the recipe calls for caster sugar. Now the reason we want to use caster sugar is it's because it's a finer sugar. It's not quite so, well, it's not like granulated sugar. Granulated sugar is a bit bigger. So I have a bit of a dilemma. I've only got granulated sugar in the house. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my blender, which is actually just a smoothie blender, to just make the sugar a bit finer. It's not as good as caster sugar. I'd definitely say if you've got the option, use caster sugar. But if you haven't got it, it's a really good substitute. So you don't need to worry too much about it if you don't have caster sugar in the house. Like I say, you can just use normal granulated sugar that you would put into your tea or coffee or on your cornflakes in the morning. And it will just, once it's in the blender, in the blitz, it will just blend it right down, and I'll show you the difference in a second, of the difference between before we put it in and after. So I don't know if you'll see it very clearly in here, there's the camera. So that's what it looks like beforehand. So I'm using golden sugar, just happens to be what I have, but again you don't need to, you just use normal sugar. So I put my little blitz on top on, make sure there's power on. So it's going to be noisy, I'm afraid. Maybe a few bits in there that are a bit bigger, but again you can't really see it now because it's all over the sides, but it's much finer. It's not quite as coarse as it was before, and then we can use it. I'm just going to give it one more blitz. Okay, so we've got a few skills we're going to use. So we are going to be heating up the milk in our pan, so you do need to be very careful. The ingredients should be coming up on the screen now, so you can have a little look. You can pause it to make sure you know what we're going to use. So yeah, we are going to be using hob, so you might need to get someone to help you with that bit, depending on how well you think you can cope with it being very hot, because we're going to use hot milk. Now milk we have to be very careful with because it can boil over. If it gets too hot, it can boil over and sort of get away from us, so we have to be very, very careful. So we've got our sugar that is now our caster sugar, although it started out as granulated sugar. I'm just going to put that in a bowl. Now you can do this by hand. I'm going to use my KitchenAid mixer because it does a job much better than I can, but just whisking by hand is fine. And to that we're going to add some egg yolks. So I've already got one egg yolk that I've put into there. So there are a couple of different ways that we can get egg yolks. So I'll try and show you some of those. One's a messy way, one's less messy, so it just depends what you want to do, whatever's easiest for you. One involves getting your hands messy and one involves using the egg. Now, guaranteed I'll probably mess this up and have to do it in about 50 takes, but we'll see how we go. So we're just going to crack the egg and then take the top off. So we've got our yolk still in here, and we're just going to pass the yolk slowly from one part of the shell to the next. So as we're passing it, the spare bits of white come out, and we're not going to use those bits, we're going to keep those in the bowl. There's a bowl underneath, obviously. And then what we eventually get is the egg yolk, and that's what we want because we're making custard. We just want that yolk. So that's one way of doing it. That's probably the less messy way, but it really means you have to get a nice even split between the two shells. So we need to make sure they're roughly even size so that you can go from one to the other. The alternative way, find my other egg, is slightly messier, I'm afraid, and it involves cracking it and putting the egg into your hand and slightly opening up your fingers, just moving it around, and then that, I sometimes move it from one hand to the next so that we really make sure we're getting it, and then putting it in there. So notice my egg yolk cracked as well, but that's fine because I managed to do it before. So that's a really messy way, so just totally up to you which way you prefer to do it. Give your hands a bit of a wash if you decide to do it the messy way. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to whisk up the egg and the sugar together, and as we do that we're also going to be heating up our milk. So we're just going to heat up the milk. So we just put that on the hob. We don't need to go to a really high temperature, so just a mid temperature is fine. Like I say, we don't have to go to a really high temperature. We're not trying to get it really hot. We're just getting it until it gets bubbles on the top, really. We're just trying to heat it up until the bubbles on the top. So we're going to try and put these egg and sugar together until it's nicer. It's a bit lighter in colour and a bit creamier. So let's put all the eggs in there. Okay, so we'll just leave that going for a minute and we'll let the milk just heat up, and then we'll come back and I'll show you what to do. Okay, so once you've got the milk bubbling, what we're going to do is we're just going to transfer that milk into our custard mixture. So again, this is going to be very hot. We don't want this to boil over for a start, and it's going to be really, really hot, so be very careful as you combine those two mixtures. And what we're basically making is a custard. So we're just going to slowly add the milk, and hopefully the custard mixture will be bubbly, because it's going to be nice and hot. And then what we're going to do with that is we're going to transfer the custard mixture into a pot that's easy to pour. So I have one I had the milk in earlier, and we're just going to transfer it into that. And then we're going to put it into our custard, into our pastry cases that we had from earlier. And then we're going to put it in the oven to cook. So just make sure you give it a good mix in there. You should have some nice bubbles in there. Okay, so I've got lots of custard mixture, probably too much for the cases that I've got. Like we say, now just get our cases and we're just going to fill them up. So don't overfill them, that's important, and don't do it too quickly. Just a little bit in each one, don't overfill. So I'll just do a couple of mine, and then I'll finish off the rest. And then what we've got to put on top is nutmeg. So you can get ground nutmeg already, or you can get nutmegs like this that are whole, and then you just need to grate those. So again, just be careful if you're grating them yourself, don't catch your fingers. And then we're just going to put a little bit of nutmeg in the middle, just to add some lovely flavour to our custard tarts. And once we've done that with all of our custard tarts, we're going to put those in the oven. They go into the oven for about 25 minutes. So you might need to turn them down near the end, just for the final 10 minutes or so, to around 180. So they should be in at around 190, 200. The last 10 minutes you might need to just turn them down a little bit, just to make sure that they're not burning on top. So again, you just need to keep an eye on them and just see what you think. But that's it, and that should hopefully be your custard tarts. So I'll finish off the rest of these and then I'll put them in the oven and we'll see what they look like. Don't forget, I'd like to see your creations as well. So if you can get a picture of you with whatever you've made with the short crust pastry, it'd be really nice, whether it's cheese straws, mince pies, you might make the custard tarts, or something completely different. You might do something completely different, and that would be amazing to see. So make sure you're sharing your work as well, and join in for next week's kitchen as well. But I will show you what our custard tarts turn out like in a bit. Okay, so our custard tarts have been in the oven at about 25 minutes. I turned them down just a bit, about 10 minutes before the end, just so that they didn't burn or overdo. So we're going to get them out. Remember, this is a point where you might need to ask for help. Make sure you've got something that can protect your hands, or get someone else to take them out of the oven. They're going to be very hot, so just be very careful on those. And we're looking for, hopefully, that the custard has set, so it's a bit solid, a bit sort of a bit more solid than it was when it went in. It's got a nice brown top, and hopefully it'll be really yummy as well. So let's have a look. Okay, so they look perfect. So again, these are going to be very hot, so you're not going to want to touch them at this point. You're going to want to let them cool for as long as you possibly can. But I'll get mine out now so we can have a little look, see how they've done. So again, don't do this yourself. So again, we're just looking for them all to have set. So the top is now got a nice sort of top on it. And we've got our pastry case, so we can just see, a little brown on top there. And if we touch it, which you're not going to do because it will be hot right now, that custard is set. We've got a nice base. Again, I'm not going to show you the base because I might be able to. So we're nicely cooked on the base there. And hopefully our custard tarts are really yummy as well. So once again, thank you for joining us. So that's our 3 different things that we've created today with short crust pastry. We've done cheese straws, we've done mince pies, and we've done our custard tarts. So please make sure that you are uploading your pictures to the assignment, to the Google Classroom assignment, so that we can see what you do. Try and get yourself in the picture as well. And join us next week, and we will try and add some more baking abilities to your repertoire, so you can do lots of baking when you are older, or to maybe for your family. There's one more important thing though that we need to make sure we're doing. Okay, so just add a little bonus tip. I had a bit of mixture left over of the custard that was going to go into my custard tarts, and so I quite simply added something called corn flour. So if you've got any of this in your cupboard, corn flour, just put that there. I just added a sprinkling on top to the custard that went into our custard tarts, which are now cooking away. And what I now have is a lovely custard, which is much thicker. I've got a spoon I can show you. And we can now use that with maybe our mince pies that we made earlier. So that is much thicker now. Show you, look, much more gloopy, much like real custard. And that is how we make custard as well that you would have. So just as an added bonus, if you wanted, and I put a bit of extra nutmeg in there as well. So if you wanted to add in and make your own custard as well, thicker custard, that's the ingredient that you would add into that as well. So it's very important to have our baking and getting our baking right, but what's just as important is this part, is making sure you are washing and cleaning up after yourself. So now is the time to go make sure that you have cleaned up after yourself, you've washed everything really thoroughly, and make sure that we're making sure the kitchen is nice and clean, because we don't want to make a big mess for someone else to clean up. So once again, hopefully you've enjoyed baking with us today, and watch out for next week when we'll be doing a bit more baking of something completely different. Thank you very much.